Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the My Council Services webinar, this time covering environmental and waste services activities. And welcome back to any of you who have joined this morning. I know we've got quite a few people that joined us for our bookings and appointments our bookings and appointments event this morning, and a few of those enjoyed it so much you've come back this afternoon, so welcome back. Again, as with our standard format for these webinars, we've been running them for a while now. And they've obviously adapted well to our new socially distanced regime that we're all having to become used to. We should have you on the move within an hour. This is quite a busy webinar in terms of content, actually. There's quite a lot to get through, and there's quite a number of different pieces of technology. I'll be running from a laptop and a tablet, and I'll be sharing screens and whatnot. So we've got quite a lot of work to do, but I will endeavour to get you on your way for the remainder of your Tuesday. Certainly within the hour, so you should be on your toes by 3:30. I'm Bernie Simmons. I'm going to be the main speaker today, but I am invaluably assisted and supported by my colleague Rachel. You won't hear from Rachel directly today unless you interact via the chat facility, and more about that in a moment. But we're going to be covering quite a lot of ground. So we'll start off with a bit of an introduction and recent background, a bit of an overview of the platform structure. I'm going to give you, the majority of the time will be a demo of our kind of waste and associated modules. There is quite a lot of content in there, so I'll probably whistle through the slides quite quickly. Again, for those of you who joined this morning, this will be familiar territory for anyone who's joining us for the first time. It is just out of courtesy worth going through a few frequently asked questions, a few FAQs. We are, as we do with all our webinars, recording this session, so that means that you can listen to it on demand afterwards. The slides that I'm running through now and that I will use at the end of the session, you will also receive a copy of in PDF format, so you will effectively have all of the materials for this session, which means that if you want to share that with colleagues internally who you think would benefit from seeing this, or you think might find this interesting, you are very welcome to do so. If you really like what you see and you would like us to arrange effectively a private webinar for you and your colleagues from your organisation, from your local authority, feel free to get in contact with us and we will arrange that for you. In more usual times, we would also extend that invitation to an on-site visit. That clearly isn't appropriate under the current regime, but perhaps at some point in the future we will be able to meet our colleagues and customers face to face. We certainly hope so. In terms of questions, I alluded to this a moment ago, we do mute all the lines for these sessions. Historically, that was generally because people were often in open plan offices, and sometimes there's background noise and ancillary noise that you can't control, so we just automatically mute all the lines on this GoToWebinar service. That the noisy colleagues and unintended background office noise has probably been changed to unintended and unwelcome domestic interruptions, dogs barking, children interrupting, that sort of thing. So to save anyone's blushes, we mute everybody's line. But that does not mean that we do not want you to ask questions. We would very much encourage you to ask questions, and you can do that by using the chat facility on the GoToMeeting console. And if you direct your questions to Rachel Clinton, my colleague who I introduced earlier, Rachel will do her best to answer those. Sometimes there's a question that's just a bit too detailed to answer over chat, or it requires a bit of a discussion and conversation, in which case we'll let you know and we'll pick that up afterwards with you. So that's the FAQs and the kind of rules of engagement for these sorts of events. So kind of let's cut to the chase and start to talk about some of the challenges to waste and environmental services, and they are numerous. So waste in particular is very resource intensive. So you need people, vehicles, depots, you're servicing often certainly tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of households as a local authority. And I should mention at this stage, we only work with local authorities. That's really who we work with. We do some work with waste providers who are outsourced providers to local authorities, but really our main focus of our activities is the UK local authority market. That's where we do the vast majority of our business. So very resource intensive. There are things that are, when you're talking about waste and domestic collections and recycling collections and green garden waste collections, and then even ad hoc collections like bulky item removal or other subscribed services like clinical waste and so on and so forth, they are emotive issues. They are core services that householders and customers in your district, borough in your unitary area care deeply about, and they're very high profile in that regard. So you need to be well equipped to manage them effectively. I think partly because of that kind of high profile nature and because of the relatively high resource intensity of waste operations and by extension environmental services operations, there has been a historical tendency to move quite slowly in terms of innovation and automation, because it's easy to make a rash move and potentially make a mistake and disrupt a core service. And quite understandably, that those that are managing and running waste services, so the professionals within local authorities that are doing this, are very measured and careful in their changes. We've been working with a good number of our customers in this space now, certainly for the last few years, so I've got some great experience. The other thing I would say is as you start to digitise and create opportunities to use more technology in your waste services and waste collection services activities, so you get the opportunity for greater analysis of that data because you're capturing more data. Whereas if you're paper-based, non-automated, largely offline, there's much less of a digital breadcrumb trail with which to understand how things are working. And that's one of the benefits and opportunities that are presented from bringing digital technology and technology more broadly into the waste services process, right from point of customer interaction through to point of collection in terms of in-cab technology. And we'll be giving you a little glimpse of all of those today, or trying to anyway. So there's some of the challenges that numerous, and these are high-profile areas. I just want to introduce a little bit around My Council Services in terms of a platform. It's a modular system in that regard. It's cloud-based, I should also say that. We host exclusively in the UK, so both our primary and secondary data centres are UK-based. And it's made up of a number of different modules. On the schematic, the slide that I've got on screen for you at the minute, the My Council Services technology, our product effectively, is mapped to the right-hand side over here. So if I work down the technology stack, and we've created it in this image to reflect how our technology stack maps to the approximate organisational structure of a UK local authority. So at the top of that stack, you've got customer self-service, customer relationship management, and case management type tools. So that kind of first point of contact with the customer through whichever channel that customer chooses to contact you as their providing authority, be that using a native app on a mobile device or a tablet, via a browser on any other type of internet-connected device. A good number of customers will still be phoning you up, and I'm guessing that all of you on the call probably still offer some form of telephone service, and you're probably still getting some form of kind of unsolicited, unstructured email, and almost certainly you'll be getting contacts via social media. So it's important to kind of funnel these channels, both structured and unstructured digital channels, into your organised processes, particularly when you're thinking about waste services. Sitting behind that, we offer a whole suite of what we call kind of line of business modules that feature capabilities and functions that enable particular types of activity. So a moment ago, I referenced the webinar that we ran earlier today, which was focused on our bookings and appointments capability, which spans multiple different service areas and actually includes waste to some extent, and we'll show an example of that again this afternoon. But waste in particular stands alone because of its unique characteristics, for all of the reasons that we were talking about a few moments ago. So that resource intensity, the importance of those, the core nature of those to the day-to-day functioning of a local authority and its delivery, and the delivery of those services to tens and often hundreds of thousands of households in your area. Also closely allied to waste is our mobile worker suite, and we will be delving into that this afternoon. So how do you take a missed bin request, for example, if someone believes their bin has been inadvertently or mistakenly not collected, and they report that? How do you get that into the hands of someone in the waste function that can deal with it, optimise it, prioritise it, do whatever needs to be done with it, and to make sure that it can get collected? Or indeed, from a mobile working perspective, how do you get a round collection, be that domestic or recycling or whatever it happens to be, that covers thousands of properties and households? How do you get that down onto a mobile device so that it can sit in cab or in hand in a crew member's hand, that they can use that to better support and drive efficiency in terms of the way that they're working? So mobile working has become really quite important as part of the waste offering. If I drill into those in a little bit more detail, I am moving through these quite quickly. I'm just very conscious of the amount of material that I'd like to be able to get through from a demo point of view. So I'm moving through this quite quickly, but fear not, you'll have access to the recording if you want to revisit bits. So at the top of the stack, we talked about self-service, customer relationship management. So My Council Services includes an eForm, integrated fully eForm designer. So that's for use of customer-facing forms, but also internal-facing forms. There are various what we call kind of form plugin capabilities, and I'll be showing you one of those this afternoon in terms of enhancing the way that an eForm can work to make it more intelligent, effectively, in terms of the way that it creates the experience, the self-service experience for the customer. You can deliver forms as individual eForms that don't require any registration. As an anonymous user, you can just pitch up, or a guest user, you can just pitch up and use them, or you can indeed tuck a form behind a registration page if you want customers to identify themselves, or they need to identify themselves to make themselves eligible for the service. And you can also bundle all of these things up into an enterprise account with all of the ancillary requirements that you might then have around that, things like single sign-on, so access to data that resides in multiple systems from a single account sign-on. You might then, if you're giving access to perhaps more sensitive financial information, for example, you might want to call on some of our multiple factor verification services that are available to make sure that people are who they say they are. All of this bundle of functionality and the entire platform, of course, is GDPR compliant. So we adhere very, very closely to the requirements of the General Data Protection Regulations. So that's a few words about the kind of self-service side of things. As you drop down, so there's a bit more detail sitting behind that in terms of really modules that we've built that are not necessarily service specific, with the exception of waste. So they're kind of, in this case, the exception proves the rule. Waste is such a particular and detailed area that we've created a completely separate module for it. But it also works alongside a range of other modules on the platform. So, for example, if you offer a paid-for Green Garden waste service, what you're effectively asking your householders, your customers in your council to do is to sign up for probably an annual contract. My local council charges us £38 for collection of our Green Garden waste, so our hedge clippings and grass cuttings and so on and so forth. And we get those collected, I think, 10 months of the year for the fee of £38. So we're effectively, every year that we sign up for that, we're signing a contract with the council that they will deliver that service, and we pay our money in return for that. So you're managing an ongoing set of contracts with a large number of customers. So we've developed a license contracts and permits management module. So contracts in that example relates to Green Garden waste. That's one example. There are lots of other examples around permits and contracts. Think about parking permits, think about Blue Badge, think about licenses for skips and scaffolds, all these sorts of things. So you can use those modules as we've created them to cater for lots of different service areas. We're going to be talking about them this afternoon in the context of waste services for local authorities. Another one that allies between both the waste management module and itself is the scheduling and bookings and appointments capability. So, for example, something like a bulky item uplift, where someone wants to make a reservation, make a booking for a service to be delivered at their property, and to pay for that service potentially. So we can bring different line of business modules on the My Council Services platform together to enable quite sophisticated digital electronic interaction. The entire platform is underpinned by a rules engine, so there's a workflow and process automation engine that underpins it, the standard conditional logic that can be configured, so that you can build fully automated workflow. And again, I'll try and show you some examples of that in the next few minutes or so. That I've mentioned already the role of kind of mobile worker and waste worker in particular, really that ability to get a round collection schedule down onto a device in a secure fashion so that it can be used in cab or that can be used handheld depending on what you're doing. And that's both for full-on domestic waste round collection, but also day-to-day ad hoc route optimization, and so that someone can collect their digital task sheet and not have a paper chase going on in the cab of their van or whatever it is they happen to be doing. So there's some of the kind of key components of the platform. If we just drill down for a minute or two onto some of the waste-specific processes, I'll build this slide up and then I'll talk you through it. So I'll show you examples of all of these in a moment. Things like Know My Bin Day. So this is really about integrating the waste data, so the round collection data, the round management information, into a customer-facing portal, so that a customer can go and do something simple like look up their round collection and their collection calendar whenever they want to via a portal or a page on your website. We can deliver that as an integrated piece. Contracted waste services. So that might be things like shafts and clinicals and those sorts of things. We can and green garden waste. We can enable all of those sorts of processes. Scheduled waste services. So you might be thinking about things like enhanced missed bin reporting. So we know that the reporting of missed bin is an ongoing thorn in the side of local authorities. Many customers are completely compliant and only report them in when it has been genuinely missed. But there are as many chances out there as there are compliant. So it's in people try and game the system with that. So can you build a bit of intelligence around that helps you bring some governance to it? And I mentioned previously things like ad hoc waste services, so bulky item collection, those sorts of things. I'll try and show you examples of all of these this afternoon in the next half an hour or so. And then more recently arrived to the suite of capability for My Council Services. We're offering both route and round optimization. I'll show you some of the back office screens around that. And that naturally extends to the use of in-cab technology. So that can be dash mounted in a vehicle, or it could be handheld by a member of the crew or an individual operative going about their daily activity. So we really offer a 360-degree solution around waste services. As I've mentioned several times already in the last 15 minutes or so, the system is modular. So you don't have to take the entire thing and work with it if you don't want to. What you can do is take particular pieces, particular modules, and kind of build out a solution as a point solution, and then you can expand out from there to a more kind of enterprise approach if that all seems to be working for you. So there's a bit of an introduction in terms of who we are and what we do with a particular kind of focus on the waste services side, as we promised this afternoon. I'm going to jump out of the slides now, get rid of my scribbles, and then we'll start our ongoing conversation by going to some live software to demo. So what I'm going to do first off, folks, is I'm just going to put up a login screen for the customer-facing portal side of things. So I'm going to log in first off under a fictitious profile for a made-up customer. See if I can remember the password while I'm about it. And that then drops us into our kind of first view of the My Council Services platform. I mentioned already this afternoon that it's a cloud-based service, and it's UK-based, so no data goes outside of the UK. It's always been designed as a local authority service exclusively, really. We don't really provide it to anyone else that isn't connected with the local authority market in some way. And as a result of that, we made some early decisions around where we would host it, UK-based, and that's proven to be a good decision, I think, in the long run. So if we look at the interface first off, I'll just give you a quick tour of how things are laid out. This is a portal that customers would typically register to. This is in its completely vanilla format, so it hasn't been branded to match the particular look and feel of a particular council. What I should say at that point is when we implement this with our customers, it's an embedded part of your local authorities.gov.uk domain. It's fully branded, it's seamlessly integrated, and it forms really a transactional functional component within your broader web property that you can run and manage as you would every other component on your web property. So the other philosophy that underpins My Council Services is giving the levers of configuration and the levers of change and control to the council. So we enable you to use it, we support you of course, but everything that you see on screen is pretty much configurable, right from branding through to detailed feature and function. So getting into the detailed feature and function component, on the left-hand sidebar, you've got quite a long drop-down list here right-hand sidebar, left-hand sidebar even, of different menu options available to you. So if I click on something like Report It, that will pop up a nested selection of forms. one of which we'll be looking at in a minute, which is missed bin. You've got things like Know My Bin Day, so looking at round collection, which is in fact where we'll start proceedings in a moment. But I'll just finish off kind of giving you a walk around the screen layout. So if I go to the right-hand sidebar, you've got various pieces of information that are pertinent and personalised to the customer. So access to all of their historical service requests, draft service requests, any contracts they might have in place, any appointments or bookings they've made. You'll see that this is a demo account with lots of activity going through it. Click up on the right-hand side, you've got access to all of your settings around the particular account, and you can go into the personal account settings and put a profile picture in, all those sorts of things from a customer's perspective. So everything we're doing here is from a customer's perspective. In the centre of the screen, you've got various what we call widgets or hotspots. Again, these are all configurable. So every component that you see on the screen is at the choice and behest of the local authority. So you can make it fairly information rich, which is what we've got here. We've quite a lot going on, or you can pare it right down to make it simple, and it can present itself in different ways based on the profile of the user. So probably the best way to start to get some sort of sense of what's going on is to go and do something like Know My Bin Day. So this is just looking up at the waste schedule. So I'm going to put in a postcode. And I've typed in the postcode and then a house number. And what you'll notice is that automatically zeroes in on a particular address. So that tells you something from a waste management perspective and a property management perspective, that what we're running on the platform is a full version of NLPG, the National Land and Property Gazetteer. So sitting as an integral component on our platform is the most up-to-date version of the ONS NLPG address-based database. And if I select that address, then what it will do, that NLPG reference, giving us a UPRN, unique property reference number, is tethered to our round management information, which is also stored on the platform. I'll come on to sort of variations on a theme on the way that we can deliver a solution a little bit later this afternoon. But in this instance, we're going to kind of show you the soup to nuts, the kind of start to finish version of delivering My Council services for waste services. And that starts with allowing customers to query against the round collection data for a property for which they have the postcode and house number, so they've got the address for it. And in 100 Grove Hill, London E18 2HZ, they've got a recycling collection coming up on the 15th of this month, and a domestic collection coming up on the 18th, so they're due next week. And also the householder, whoever's querying this collection schedule, can also look at the entire calendar from here, and that will show them all of their collection days throughout the year. We can provide facilities to print that off as a PDF and those sorts of things. All of that's possible. But what you're really doing is trying to democratise access to that information, so that people can effectively self-serve and see what's going on and when, and not just rely on looking out of the window and seeing whether their neighbours have dragged their bin out and whether it's bin day or not. So you've got more intelligent, shall we say, ways of solving those questions for yourself. So that's the ability at a very simple level, just to get onto the portal and look up the round collection information for your property, or for equally a neighbour or friend's property or a relative's property that may be struggling to do it themselves. So lots of convenient ways to access information. So if we then go a step beyond that, if you're in receipt of refuse collection services from your premises, as we all are as council taxpayers within our various districts and boroughs and unitary areas under our relevant authorities, one of the things that may on occasion happen is that the collection crews miss a bin. So we might want to report a missed bin. So I'm going to type in missed bin in the search bar, which sits atop the widgets in the account portal that we've been working through and working around. The whole content of the portal is indexed for search. So that's both knowledge-based articles and forms and transactional activities. So I could go and see why my bin isn't collected. That's a knowledge-based article. But if I actually want to report a missed bin collection, then I can click on the missed bin collection form, and that will take me into the form proper. So that takes me into that form, and I get given some details of the criteria, I suppose, that surround refuse collection in my area. And then I get the option to select the collections that I believe have been missed, which is quite an important point. So if I click on that select option, that will then intelligently query against my round collection data for my registered address. So let's remember that I'm logged in here as a pretend customer or a pretend resident, a chap called Gary Wilcox, living a pretend life in the Redbridge, London Borough of Redbridge. This is all demo data and demo material. So because I'm a pre-registered customer, the system knows where I'm resident. It knows my registered address. It's able to pre-populate the waste collection mist bin form with that address, and using that same address and UPRN, it's able to pull back the relevant collection data for my property. So I've only got a couple of garden collections, one on the 8th of May and one on the 1st of May. And it's what the system is telling me is that this service can be reported as a miscollection. So what's going on here is there are some rules configured in the back end of the software, in the back end of the platform, that say a customer can report a bin as missed up to 4 or 5 days, or however many days it might be post the collection date. So and I can control that. If indeed those criteria were not met and the opportunity, the window of opportunity for reporting a missed bin had passed, then these collections would appear, but they would be greyed out and they would be non-selectable. But I can actually go ahead and I can select that as a missed bin. I can say it hasn't been collected. It will write that back into the transaction. If I'm feeling very thorough, I could even add a photo of it if I wanted to. And what's the betting? I've got one prepared just here somewhere, if I can find it. Have a bin awaiting collection. Well, I thought I had, maybe I haven't. There we go. Photo of a missed bin. We can control the number of files that are uploaded, all these sorts of things. We have governance over the permissible file extensions for photos, all these sorts of things. And so having added a photo and highlighted our bin as missed, click on next, and that will then take us through the process. Upload that file, and I can go ahead and submit. So we've done a number of things there that are actually quite important and not often seen. I think that the looking up your bin collector schedule, that's a fairly common feature. Using rule-based intelligence to wrap around the process of a missed bin reporting process, that's quite a useful feature. A lot of our customers use that and find that extremely useful in a constructive way of being able to just kind of sort the wheat from the chaff of what really is a missed bin and what isn't, and putting some rules around that and preventing people effectively gaming the system. So having created that service request, I can then go and view that, and that missed collection as a reported service request to the council exists in my data and my history. So we'll do a couple of other bits and bobs. I'm going to show you a waste booking example here briefly, which includes some interesting features. So we're going to go to the book it example, and we're going to go bulky collection. So we're going to navigate to this one manually. We could have searched for that on any of the terms or metadata terms. I'll do this fairly quickly, and you'll be getting the idea of it. Now, once again, as a registered customer, it needs to know where I am because it's going to come and collect something from my property. So it's using the pre-registered address for Gary Wilcox, my pretend customer in this example. I can only select certain dates. So once again, as with the Know My Bin Day and the missed bin collection, the form itself is referencing that larger volume of round collection data that exists on the platform. So it's got direct access to that data, which allows the customer to have a more intelligent experience. And based on the location of 78 Grove Hill, in the borough of Redbridge in this example, only certain collection dates are available. So well, if I want stuff collected, I've got I'm going to be working from home, looks like every day perhaps so far, but on the 1st of June, we might confirm that and see if any slots are available. The system will then say, yeah, there's capacity for slots for collection on the 1st of June, so I can select that slot. That will then expand out the options that are open to me. So I might say, well, it's an electrical appliance, and we'll say it's computer, printer, any parts, and it will add that to the collection. So it's a £6 charge for that single weighted item. If I want to add another item, I'll choose something that I know has got a heavier weighting and therefore a heavier price. So we'll take bed. That has a weighting of 2, which bumps the price up to £21. So that's a more expensive item in that regard. So I can have up to 6 items. You can control all of the aspects of configuration for this bulky item uplift piece. If I'm then happy with that, I can click on proceed and click on next. Again, it gives me the opportunity in this example. This is just a templated example. You can configure these forms in any way that you like to suit your particular process and the steps that you want your customers to go through. But we'll go in and put some details in there. So the crew have got an idea of what it is they're collecting. And you might want to review that beforehand, for example. We'll take a look at some of these back office processes in a moment. This is a paid for service. You will have noticed, and I pointed out in the prior step, that as we were adding items in this weighted way, some items are charged at £6, some are more expensive dependent on their size and bulk and how much space they take on the van. And that's how we're charging. You don't have to do it that way. That's just one example from one of our customers that we've borrowed for this demonstration cycle. Second point of integration, so we've been integrated with the round management data already so far. We're now integrating and connecting with the payment gateway capability for this council, which in this case is a Barclaycard test payment gateway, but it could be any of the payment gateways. It picks up an order reference, a total charge and the beneficiary. We go through the usual steps we are all no doubt familiar with in terms of online payment. That card number is a test card number. It's a 4 and 15 ones. So if you want to give it a whirl on Amazon later this evening, feel free. I don't think you'll have much joy. And then we click on confirm payment. And then the payment gateway piece will do its work. It will authorize that payment. And then once it's done that authorization process and made sure it's been able to collect that payment safely and securely, it will hand us back in a seamless fashion to the primary platform, My Council Services. So Gary is our customer that is working through this booking and payment process for having computer peripherals and devices that are no longer required collected from his home and a bed base collected from his home. He's now paid for that. He's booked in. He can click on next and get a final confirmation of all the things that he's done in that transaction. And then if he's happy with that, he can click on submit. And that will create that data in the system for him. So we'll let that happen. Again, you'll notice the click counter on the number of service requests going up. And if I drop back into that, you'll see that we've now got the missed collection service request that we created at 3 minutes to 3. And then some 5 or 6 minutes later, we created the special collection, the bulky item uplift from the same property. So we've done several things this afternoon. We're also looking at bin collection schedules, so on and so forth. So we've been using digital transactions to do a range of different activities via the customer portal. So where that naturally takes us to is to then go and take a look at the back office of My Council Services. So again, just to be completely clear, everything that we've done so far has been to do with the customer working independently of any council officer or any telephone conversation with the council to go through and do things on their own behalf in a self-service and semi-automated fashion. If we then jump across to a new browser, and I'll just refresh this page because I have a feeling that it will have timed out on me, and we'll go and we will log in under a different profile this time. So we're switching roles. I'm switching caps at this point in the demonstration, and I'm going to start to take you through some of the back office capabilities. Another password to remember, which is different from the last one. And then we click on login, and that should take us into the first view of the back office for My Council Services. So we're on a demo non-production instance, but it is a full live instance of the My Council Services platform. So where it's taken us to, folks, at this stage is what we call the Service Desk module of My Council Services. And Service Desk is really our kind of premier case management application. So it allows a user of the back office to see a clear picture of all of the service requests and transactions that are coming through for their particular service area. The whole platform is governed by what we call role-based access control. So that's RBAC, role-based access control. And that means as a user of the platform, everyone has a unique profile assigned to them. And that unique profile under RBAC governs what it is that they can see, and more importantly, perhaps what it is they cannot see or they are not authorized to see. So that covers both function and feature of the platform. So dependent on your profile, you will see only certain types of area of the platform, functional area that you can access. And crucially, it will govern the type of data or the range of data that you see. So if My Council Service is being used across the entire organisation, A user that sits in social care, for example, will only see data that they are authorised to use, and a user that's sitting in waste services or environmental services, whatever it might be, will only see the relevant data to their role and their service area. So everything is locked down very, very tightly in terms of GDPR and access to data. So what Service Desk gives you is a linear view and a time-based view of what's coming through the system. So we can see those two service requests that we created a few minutes ago within a few minutes of each other under Gary's profile in the customer portal are now sitting in the database. So we've got a special collection created at 1502, customers Gary Wilcox. We can also see that something has happened here. So the owner has been updated on both of these, and they've actually been assigned to me. So that's an example of something I mentioned earlier, which is the automated workflow kicking in. So it's come and it said it's a special collection in this location for this day, automatically assign it out to this operative or to this crew. So we're using automated workflow to make sure that we can minimise the need for manual intervention at any point on this particular waste process. Exactly the same thing has happened with that missed bin collection. So we can see that it's been allocated and assigned out to me as a mobile worker. So if I dip into those and we click on the service request number, that then takes me into the atomic and kind of granular level detail of that particular case, of that particular service request. So we can see that it was Gary Wilcox that submitted it. We can see all of Gary's contact details. We can see the date of submission. We can see the detail of the collection that was requested. We can see that the payment was successfully collected. So we know that we're good to go. We can see the photo that Gary uploaded of a right pile of old computing junk. Assuming that's permissible, we can go and collect that on his behalf. We've got the location of that collection point, and also the automated workflow, the rules engine that sits on my council services has automatically created, in this case, a couple of tasks or a couple of work orders. So we'll be able to assign them out to a mobile worker, and we can go in and we can see what's going on with those. So on that note, just a couple of things to call out on this screen. You've got down the right-hand side of the Service Desk screen, you've got the kind of full gamut of case management functions. So you can add a document if it's you need to add a document to it. You can add a simple note. You can log an interaction with the customer. You can create a task manually. We've done that automatically. Notes using the rules engine. We can create tasks. We can configure outcomes. We can link it to other service requests. We can look at the full history of the service request. So if I click on history, we see every step that was taken either by a user, a user that's a person, or a user that is the system. Every change that's been affected on this particular case has been recorded. So we've got a full history of everything that's been done. So if you were dealing with something like a fly tip, for example, from an environmental perspective, and that went to prosecution, you'd have a solid history of everything that was touched on that case and what was done to make sure that your case was absolutely watertight, if that's what you were doing. So you get full history. You can update things like owner, status information. So you can have workflow running in two ways. You can either have it run in an automated way, which is what we're going to make use of and what we've been making use of in this example, or indeed we can override that and intervene that, and we can use our discretion as human operatives and as people to make decisions about how we want to handle this. So you've got the full range of case management capabilities within Service Desk. Right, at that point, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to jump back up to the top level of the Service Desk view, and then I'm going to attempt to use some third-party technology to share with you my on-screen mobile working interface. So I always cross my fingers at this point because I'm working with some technology that is outside of our own development sphere. I'm just using some screen sharing technology so that I can show you the screen on my tablet. And I'm going to use this application. Just bear with me a moment while I bring my screen up. We're nearly there. Okay, if you picked up that little electronic ping, that's a good sound to hear from my point of view as the presenter, because that means that I've been able to successfully share my screen. So what you're seeing on screen now, folks, is it's a standard Android tablet screen, actually, which is what I'm holding in my hand. And if I draw your attention down to this little icon here, the little blue icon with the 3 Cluedo pieces on it that says MCS Demo, My Council Services Demo on it. If I tap on that, that will take us into the My Council Service native mobile application. So everything that I've showed you so far in terms of things that the customer has been doing, and in terms of the activities that we've been doing through service desk and case management from a waste perspective via the back office, I've been doing via a browser. But we also offer, as well as a fully responsive browser interface that you could run indeed from a device like this, from an Android device, we also offer a native mobile application, secure native mobile application. And that secure native mobile application affords a number of benefits. It actually enables the full mobile working piece. And I'm going to show you a couple of things in order. First place I'm going to take your attention to is down at the waste worker icon here. So this native mobile application does a number of things. It can be used as a mobile working application for council officers, and it provides true both online and offline working in that regard. So an operative can continue to go about their business regardless of whether they've got carrier or wireless signal. They can still access their caseload and all those sorts of things as long as they've downloaded it. It's held secure and encrypted on the device. But it can also be deployed via the app stores for customers to use things like report it rules. So we were looking at the report it options on the browser-based side, both mist bin, food hygiene, fly tipping, so on and so forth. All of those exist on the native app. So you can give your customers channel of choice in terms of how they choose to react or interact with you. They can use the native mobile application for which they can register or use as a guest, or they can use the online browser-based application and have a synchronized view of both from either of those options. What I'm going to do first, I want to show you a couple of things. I'm going to actually tap on waste worker first. So this icon, fourth from the top on the left-hand side. If I tap on that, it will take me back into a set of screens that allows me to show you how we can download a full set of round information. So I'm just going to sync that screen very, very quickly, and then I'm going to start the process over again. I'm going to tap in the top left-hand corner, and the first thing I'm going to ask to do is to say get waste data. So what I'm doing here is I'm acting as a mobile worker that's effectively about to start a collection activity of domestic waste or whatever it might be using a vehicle. So the first thing I'm going to do is choose my collection type. I'm going to say the domestic collection. What day is it? Which I'm doing a Thursday collection. And what round number am I assigned to? I've got a round number organised here. You can have multiple selection options there. You could also have things like a pre-collection vehicle and safety inspection, all those sorts of things. This is a Thursday collection, so I need to select an appropriate Thursday. So if I go back to click on OK, and then I click Go, what that's actually going to do from the native mobile application, it's going to pull through that round information that's available to me. So I've got a full set of actual round information on this screen, and I've got notes about the property, the street, any warnings that are appropriate, the number of containers that need to be collected. All of these things are displayed clearly in a nice icon fashion on the screen for me. So this can be used handheld, or it could indeed be dash mounted. What I can then do, having downloaded that round information, I can then go and say, give me a map view of that. And then what it does is it launches that round information, and this is where I reveal my location over on the East Coast. Like I guess everybody else this afternoon, I'm also working from home. But it then does the full turn-by-turn navigation piece. And you can probably hear the device speaking to me. So I'm now in satellite navigation mode. So if I actually wanted to get this running, I could say I'll put it into demo mode. We'll go demonstrate, and then it will actually start running. I'll speed it up so that we're doing a ridiculous speed in our fictitious refuse collection wagon. The data that we're actually using here is actually based in South Wales. So the example we've got, it couldn't be much further away from where I am today. So it's got a good long drive out of it. But I did just want to give you a sense of how you can use that round collection data, that round management information that's available on the platform, how that can be deployed and pushed out to use in an in-cab context. And that's exactly what's going on here. So it's taken us on a good long ride right across the country. I won't subject you to the entire thing, but I did just want to run that live for you so you can see what it looks like. The data that's fed back to the crew in the cab will also include things like street warnings and collection notes. It can include things like gate codes if it's in a gated bin area or whatever it might be. So it can have really granular level information attached to every collection point, every waypoint on that particular circuit, on that particular round. So there's one example of mobile working from a full domestic collection schedule perspective. We'll just jump out of that. There's another little piece of functionality that I'd also like to show you whilst we're on the native mobile application. When we were working on the customer browser side of things earlier, we created a couple of service requests. When I showed you those in the back office a few minutes ago in Service Desk, if you recall, they've been assigned out to me as a mobile worker. So what I want to draw your attention to now, if I may, is the mobile worker on the right-hand side of the screen. I'm just hovering my cursor at the minute, fourth from top. And if I click on that, while I've been showing you some of that other round collection and turn-by-turn satellite navigation capability, you'll also notice that those two service requests that we created a little bit earlier now exist on my digital task sheet on my device. I haven't had to do anything. Nobody's has to click any buttons on that, but the rule automation process on the platform has automatically assigned them out and downloaded that information to me. So for this special collection, if I tap on that, I can see all of the details around the collection that I've got to go and make, including the location. I can see that it's been paid for, so I know I'm good to collect. And as I scroll through it, you'll also notice that I've got tasks associated with it. So if I tap on that task, it will take me into it. And if I'm there, I've made the collection and I'm talking to the householder, to Gary in this example, I may then want to update that status and say, well, actually, I'm going to have to put that to work in progress or whatever it might be. I can scroll through all of these and make the necessary changes to the tasks that have been assigned to me. So I've got access to both turn-by-turn satellite navigation on the mobile worker piece, and that could help me on an ad hoc collection such as the one with special collections or misbin collections, and I can use it on a larger scale, as I was demonstrating a few minutes ago, to enable turn-by-turn satellite navigation with all of the appropriate street warnings, property information, collection information spoken and relayed back to whoever's in control of that in the cab. So lots of functionality available to really build technology into the end-to-end process piece. So there's a quick taste of some of the mobile working capability. We can also, if I drop back into some of these other service requests, if I drop into them, you can see that as you close service requests off, so you can capture other pieces of information. So if we go and look at a special collection task here, you can see that we've captured a customer signature as part of these processes. So there's a whole range of things that we can do in terms of making the process complete, and completely digital is the important point. So that's some of the back office capability. There's a few other bits and pieces I want to do. I want to delve into a bit more detail before I let you get on with the rest of your Tuesday afternoon. And particularly, I'm going to take you to the waste screen. So if you just follow my cursor down to kind of midway on that left-hand sidebar, and we click on the waste option here, this effectively gives us our business console in terms of interacting with the waste data on the platform. So from here, I can go and take a look at the raw data that exists on the platform. So I collect that same set of information that we were looking at on the device. So we were downloading that full set of round information. I'll click on search, and that will retrieve back for me all of that round collection information. So everything that I was looking at on the mobile device, I can also query and interact with through the business console on the platform itself, on the browser-based platform. And from here, I can do a number of different things if I've got the privileges to do so. I could, for example, go and add particular collection points to a round. So I've got the ability to interact with that. I can see that in tabular format, and if I click on the map button, it will also show me that round collection in spatial format. So I'll get it once the screen loads as a map on screen. So you can see that laid out in Newport, in fact, in this example. And if I click into any of those individual addresses, so we can drill down on the particular detail of that particular round collection. So we can visualize and see the collection. If I then want to go to another level of detail, I can click on the action button, And I've got a whole bunch of options available to me here. I've got tools for managing missing addresses. I can run bulk updates. I've got the ability, if necessary, to be able to interact with Weybridge data and Weybridge text. I've got interactive waste. I've got the ability to import large-scale CSV updates in addition to the round collection and allocate those accordingly. And I can also go into a round management option. If I click on round management, we're starting to get into the guts of the optimization capability that exists on the platform as part of our waste offering. So, for example, if I select that same round information, that's Thursday domestic collection on the code DWK1 Thursday 11, and we give it the right date. In fact, it should just automatically find that. Wrong day. Let's select a Thursday, of course. On go, and it will then bring that data down. And I've then got effectively the same capability of being able to look at that data in a console format. And if I want to look at that in the way that it's been optimized, this gets a little bit into the kind of real heavy detail of how the optimization engine works. I'll just zoom out on that. Those blue arrows and all those collection points relate to the way that optimized engine algorithm is working on the platform. And I can actually drill down and I can add collection points and I can remove collection points from the round here if I want to. So I can really interact in quite a detailed way with that refuse and round collection data. This is not something that your average user is necessarily going to do. This is probably more of the kind of waste operations management function where you're into the detail of optimizing and adding and removing to rounds and those sorts of things. But it's bringing that full force of route optimization technology that can then translate into satellite navigation capability on the device to make sure that your rounds are running effectively. So you've got all of that capability back here. If I've made changes to that and I then go back to the tabular view, I can then rerun an optimization of that, having made those changes. So I can ask the whole thing to re-optimize, and that will trigger the optimization process on the platform. So you've got the ability to access that waste data from a customer's perspective, from a mobile worker's perspective, and because of the core round and route optimization and planning functions, you've got the ability to govern and manage how all of that works and how that gets optimized as things move forward. So we're sort of slowly veering into the home straight in terms of the content that I wanted to get through. There's just a last couple of things that I wanted to share with you. So I want to touch on some of the reporting capabilities. So if I take your attention up to the dashboard at the top of the screen, just click on that. You've got an ability to get real-time information effectively on what's going on in terms of transactions that are coming through the platform. So we're looking at waste, and we might want to look at special collections. It will just recut that data. So we're looking at real-time data just for special collections in this example. So you've got some basic dashboard reporting by service request, by customer type, by channels used, by bookings carried out. You've got real-time reporting capability across all of this. And then if I drop your attention down to the analytics option down here, we've got a much more detailed level of reporting that's available. So these are effectively pre-configured reports that can retrieve pretty much any data that's resident and residing on the platform. We also offer direct dynamic connections to things like Microsoft Power BI. So if you want to take data off the platform and analyze that retrospectively in your business intelligence application, we also enable those sorts of capabilities. And then the final piece that I wanted to share with you was just to take you into the administration function. So I think I mentioned at the top of our session this afternoon that the whole platform has really been designed with configuration in mind, in that what we want to be able to do is to set our customers up so that they can do as much of the configuration, not necessarily the initial configuration and launch, but the ownership and governance of that on a day-to-day basis. So if you need to design a new form and a new process for your waste services function, or you need to re-optimize a round, or you need to make changes to an existing round, or whatever it might be, you've got the configuration tools to do that. Or let's say, for example, that you have a change to the type of domestic refuse receptacles that you're delivering and providing with customers, you've got the ability to change that on the platform. So to that example, if I scroll down on the administration screen, you'll see there's a whole section dedicated to waste. I can click through onto collections, and I've got the ability from there to add any additional collection or to make changes to existing ones that I might want to do. So I've got the ability to set things up from scratch, or perhaps more importantly, as things change, if we have a as I said, a change in receptacle size for our recycling or domestic collection, I can click in and I can go and edit that. So we're trying to make, and we've tried to make, and we've worked with our customers to ensure that this happens, to make the entire platform configuration driven, and to an extent to which our customers are comfortable, to enable you to do that yourself. If you want us to do more for you, and you want us to provide you with do all of the changes for you, we can certainly do that. But the vast majority of our customers, once they've been trained and supported and they're implemented and set up, can take ownership and governance of this on a day-to-day basis. And if you need recourse to us for additional support and help, then of course that's available. So I won't go into huge detail on the administration settings because there's an awful lot there. I'll just show you a couple of other bits and pieces. So one of the things I like to show is the form store. So if you want to design a form from scratch, you can do that using the form designer. But one of the things we were asked to do by our customers quite early on, in fact, was to provide an ability for customers to share assets between different councils. So if I search for waste, we'll see what forms come up. And most customers do, once having created forms, they will share them. So you've got at the top of the list a whole bunch of our Abavus templates. You have bulky waste collection, garden waste, whatever it might be. But you scroll down there and you can see examples of customer forms that have already been created that customers have decided to share. And all you need to do, if you want to go and take a look at Blaenau Gwent's 2020 Green Garden Waste Form, you select that. You can go and preview it if you wish, look at the design of it, and if you like the look of it, you can go and import it. It then exists as a copy of that in your instance securely. You can change it, develop it, create it to your own ends. But you've got the ability to share assets between local authorities. It's one of the nice features of working with local authority customers, is there's a professional competition, of course, in terms of doing your job well, but there's also an openness to sharing best practice. So that key message of configuration really kind of runs through the entire platform. So I said there was quite a lot of content to get through. We've got 3 minutes left for me to keep my promise of getting you on your way for the rest of your Tuesday afternoon within the hour. And on that note, I'll just jump back across to the slides and we'll start to kind of to bring things to an orderly conclusion. But just to recap very briefly, so we've been through quite an intense kind of 30-odd minute, 40-minute demonstration there really, in terms of showing you what the customer can do in terms of missed bin reporting, looking at bin collection schedules, making a booking-based and paying for a booking-based service for removal of bulky items. We then dropped back into the back office and looked at service desk feature and function around case management for waste-related processes. We then jumped across to the mobile device and looked at that from a mobile working perspective, both in terms of turn-by-turn satellite navigation based on full round management information, and also the allocation of ad hoc waste collection tasks to individual mobile workers, and then jump back to look at some of the configuration and optimization routines that exist on the platform. So we've covered quite a lot of ground in a relatively short space of time. So if we just jump back to the slides now, just a couple of last things. We will share these slides with you, so I may just skip over some of these, but just a few words on the actually relative complexity of one aspect of this, which is that optimization process that I showed you briefly. That optimization process takes into account lots of different parameters, whether it's doing a round optimization, which is a full kind of domestic household waste collection, which is a big scribble on the left-hand side, and you saw an example of that in real time on the platform, or what we would call a fully optimized round, when you kind of declutter all that and look at what the resultant factor is to get you around those routes most efficiently. But it's taking into account lots of different spatial relationships. That includes things like vehicle characteristics, size, payload, capacity, fuel consumption. It takes into account highway information, roads, accessibility constraints, and it can also include things like real-time traffic information if you want to go that far. I talked about various approaches to the way that we do these implementations. What I've showed you this afternoon, really at kind of roller coaster speed, is the kind of end-to-end on-platform solution that we can provide from a waste perspective. We can, of course, integrate our solution from a customer-facing side, actually from an in-cab side, in with existing waste management applications. If you're just looking for in-cab, or you're just looking for customer-facing solutions. And there's an example of on the schematic of current integrations that we've done, both into waste providing systems, but also a range of other integrations that we've done to third-party applications that you might want to take a look at in review. So it just really kind of remains for me to give you a little bit of guidance in terms of where we're at and some thoughts about how to get started. So I mentioned a couple of times throughout the last hour that My Council Services is a modular system, so it can therefore be implemented incrementally. You don't have to have kind of a big bang implementation. You can pick a point solution around waste or environmental services, whatever it might be, and implement just mobile working or just a piece of in-cab technology or just some customer-facing technology. But you can build quite economically and quite quickly and deploy quite quickly point solutions that solve particular problems. And having done that, that doesn't constrain you from having the end-to-end enterprise approach. I should also mention that My Council Services is an open platform, so we play nicely with other databases and other technologies, and we can exchange data securely with them based on secure integrations. And I always try and just temper our enthusiasm for the technology a little bit by saying that technology is only a part of the solution. When you're implementing new digital technology for your local authority, you need to be thinking about reviewing and optimizing and remapping processes. Don't just roll over existing offline processes to new online platforms. You're in danger of getting the same results about having spent money in the process. You really need to be thinking about how you can optimize processes. So at that point, it just remains for Rachel and I to say thank you very much for joining today's webinar. As I mentioned earlier, we will make the slides available for download. A recording of today's session, if you can bear to listen to me again, is also available, or if you want to subject that onto your other colleagues, you feel free to do so. And if you do have questions that we haven't been able to get answers for you through the course of this afternoon, then don't hesitate to get in contact with us. Our contact details are listed below on the slide, which we will send out for you shortly. So thank you very much for your time this afternoon, folks. Stay safe and stay well, and we look to speak forward to speaking to you at some point in the future. Bye-bye now.